Good day. In this video, we will be discussing about the respiratory system, in particular the movement of air throughout the body. Okay, so our respiratory system can be divided into two parts. We have the upper respiratory tract and the lower respiratory tract. So the respiratory system works closely with the cardiovascular system in order to deliver oxygen and expel carbon dioxide in the body. And then the respiratory system also has the function of filtering incoming air, and in doing so also maintaining the blood pH because of the carbon dioxide expulsion. So aside from that, it also helps control fluid and thermal homeostasis. So how does it do that? So for the blood pH, it has something to do with the amount of carbon dioxide in the body, because the carbon dioxide in the body exists not as CO2 but as carbonic acid, and it's of course acidic. So the respiratory system, as the system that expels carbon dioxide, it has also the function of regulating, or at least it has a say in regulating the blood pH level. And as for the fluid control and thermal homeostasis, it has something to do with the amount of moisture in the air. So when you breathe in air, your upper respiratory system moisturizes it, and the air we breathe out is of course again has moisture. So that's for partly fluid control, and for the thermal homeostasis, of course the breath. Our breath is basically, it helps aerate our body, so it also expels excess heat. So aside from those homeostatic control, we also have sound production. Of course, we are able to speak with the help of our respiratory system. So the air, with the help of the air, we can actually articulate sounds and produce words and sentences. Now, contraction of the diaphragm has an indirect effect on the blood and lymph flow. The diaphragm is on the thoracic cavity, so a contraction of the muscles, it has an effect on the vascular system of the blood and the lymph. Now, as I told you before, we have the upper respiratory and the lower respiratory tract. The upper respiratory tract, which comprises the nose, the nasal cavity, and the larynx, warms, moistens, and filters air as it enters the body. While the lower respiratory tract, which includes the trachea, the bronchi, the bronchial tree, and the lungs itself, they are the ones responsible for allowing oxygen to enter the blood, and the waste gases, which is of course mainly carbon dioxide, to leave it. Now, this is an overall view of your respiratory system. As you can see here, this is your upper respiratory tract, and this becomes the lower respiratory. So upper and lower respiratory tract. Now, let's focus on the upper respiratory tract first. So, the air starts, or breathing in air starts, of course, with the nose. So, the external portion of the nose consists of our nasal bones, the hyaline cartilage, the soft squishy part that is that we touch on our faces, which is all covered by the skin and muscle. So, the external nares, which are the opening of the nose, and the septum is formed from the septum is the line at the middle, dividing the two nares. So it is formed from cartilage and the perpendicular plate of the ethmoid bone and the vomer. So I won't be really since this is not exactly a med course, you don't need to focus much on memorization. So anyway, so what is important here is again, respiration. The flow of air starts with the entering of the air to the nose. So once the air enters, the mucous membrane filters it. So we have coarse hairs in the nostrils to filter out larger particles, while the mucus of the nasal passages, inside the nasal passages, they also filter incoming air by trapping the small particles that passes by the coarse hairs. And aside from that, the mucus also has the function of moistening, warming and moistening the air. So the epithelium in the upper respiratory tract is pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. So it's a type of tissue. So we have cilia in the cilia in this tissue, the surface of the cells in the tissue contains cilia, and they move mucus, which contains trapped debris, away from the lungs. So they constantly move it outwards, out the nose. or through the garbage dump inside our facial bones. So the nasal epithelium has a chemosensory neurons which provides a sense of smell and of course the sense of taste as well. So we have a large blood supply in the nasal epithelium. It also helps warming the air that we breathe in. So this is the nose. We have mostly cartilaginous framework, and of course the bone, the nasal bone. Okay. Now, after it passes through the nose, we have the nasopharynx, which is our upper throats. So its function is only in the respiration. So in our anatomy, there is a convergence between the mouth and the nose. But in the nasopharynx area, so it's still upper. So our food should not enter the nasopharynx. So we have uvula. The fleshy tub of tissue that hangs down the back of the throat, which contracts when touched by solids, moving upward and closing the nasopharynx. We have the eustachian or the auditory tubes that link the nasopharynx and the middle ear. So when you hear a pop in the ears, especially when we traverse a higher altitude, so these tubes open to equalize air pressure between the middle and outer ear. And then after that, we have the oropharynx, which is the part of the body directly behind the tongue. So we have here our illustration. So you have the nasopharynx area here. So this is about here. So by the way, the inside of the nose, which is the side, not exactly the sides, but the olfactory epithelium. So this is the nasal concave. This is the area which is quite large. So this is the area where the air is warmed and filtered out of its particles. So anyway, we have the nasopharynx. So the air comes in from the nose, is warmed and filtered in the nasal concave, and then we have the nasopharynx going down to the trachea. So here is the mouth. So when we eat food, there is an area, especially in the oropharynx area, where both the passageway of air and food converge. Now that is an issue, especially because, well, for humans, we cannot breathe in while we are swallowing. So anyway, the oropharynx, we have that's the area where there is a confluence between the digestion, eating, swallowing, and of course breathing in. So we have the palatine and the lingual tonsils here. Now, when we actually when we swallow, the epiglottis here covers your trachea. So it prevents this epiglottis. So it closes there. So it prevents food from entering the trachea, because when food enters the trachea, you will choke, and basically people die from choking. Now we have laryngopharynx, which is the end of the laryngopharynx has two openings. So it functions in both digestion and respiration. We have the anterior openings leading to the larynx and the rest of the respiratory system. So here is your laryngopharynx area. Okay, so this is around where your epiglottis is. So again, it has both digestive and respiratory functions. The anterior opening, the front, leads to the larynx and the rest of the respiratory system, while the posterior, at the back, leads to the esophagus and the digestive system. So again, that is the reason why we cannot breathe in while we swallow. So you only have to do one of two things. So here is the critical area where choking happens. Okay. Now, looking at the larynx, so we have the upper and the larynx is the one that divides the upper and the lower respiratory tract. So it holds the respiratory tract open and guards the lower tract against particulate matter, which is where, of course, the food that we swallow. It also helps in the production of speech. So in the larynx is the voice box, which is the location of the vocal cords. So the larynx itself has 3 single pieces of cartilage and 3 pairs of cartilage. You have the thyroid, the epiglottis, and the cercoid cartilage. You have the corniculate cartilages, and we have for the single pieces of cartilage, you have thyroid cartilage, epiglottis, and cercoid, while the corniculate cartilages and the athenoid and cuneiform are those pairs. So anyway, let's look at our larynx. So the anterior, the front view, posterior, back view. So here is your epiglottis. The hyoid bone, this is the bone which is called a floating bone because it's not interconnected with any other bone in the body. So this is the hyoid, and then we have your corniculate cartilages. This one shown in the back. The arytenoid is only seen in the back. Then we have the cercoid cartilage. This is the thyroid gland. So this has a function in metabolism, control of metabolism. So anyway, this is for the endocrine system. And then this is your tracheal cartilage. So the larynx is the one that separates your upper and lower respiratory tract, as well as it helps in the production of speech. So the thyroid cartilage is also the one that forms the Adam's apple that is prominent in men. So that is due to the thickening of the vocal folds. That's why they have a very prominent Adam's apple. Okay? So the epiglottis, again, it covers the lower respiratory tract and prevents food from entering there. So those are those important parts of the larynx. Now, in the next video, we will discuss about the lower respiratory tract.